The concept of human perception, especially the nuanced ability to read between the lines, commonly attributed to women, is not a social construct. It is a biological masterpiece, millions of years in the making. To understand why some people can sense a shift in the atmosphere the moment they step into a room, we must go beyond psychology and look at the actual hardware of the brain. For centuries, survival was not just about outrunning a predator, it was about navigating the complex social hierarchies of the tribe. In this environment, the female brain evolved to become a highly specialized, social data processor. Neurological studies have consistently shown that the corpus callosum, the bridge of neural fibers connecting the left and right hemispheres, is often denser in women. This allows for a massive, high-speed exchange of information between the analytical left brain and the emotional, holistic right brain. While the left side processes the literal words spoken, the right side is simultaneously decoding the music behind those words, the pitch, the rhythm, and the subtle emotional tremors. But the hardware goes deeper. We must look at the Anterior Cingulate Cortex, or the ACC. This region of the brain acts as the body's conflict detector. It is constantly scanning the environment for mismatches. When someone says, "I'm fine," but their pupils slightly constrict or the vocal pitch rises by just a few hertz, the ACC fires an alarm. It signals to the amygdala, the brain's emotional center, that something is wrong. This is the physiological birth of a gut feeling. It is not a guess, it is a high-speed, unconscious calculation of biological data that the conscious mind hasn't even noticed yet. Furthermore, we cannot ignore the role of mirror neurons. These are specialized cells that fire both when we act and when we observe someone else acting. They allow us to echo the physical and emotional state of another person within our own nervous system. When you are talking to someone who is secretly anxious, your mirror neurons pick up on their micro-tensions. You start to feel their anxiety as if it were your own. This limbic resonance is the silent Wi-Fi of human interaction, and mastering the deciphering of these cues starts with acknowledging that your body is a more powerful antenna than your ears will ever be. Now, let us move from the brain to the body. Most people believe they can hide their true feelings, but the body is a terrible liar. To cultivate true insight, one must learn the hierarchy of honesty. We are taught from childhood to control our facial expressions. We learn to put on a brave face, or smile for the camera. Therefore, the face is often the most dishonest part of the human body. To find the truth, an insightful observer looks downward. They look at the feet. Because the feet are the furthest from the conscious brain, they are the last parts of the body to receive instructions on how to fake a posture. This is the lead foot principle. If you are talking to someone and their torso is facing you, but their feet are angled toward the exit, their mind has already left the conversation. They are literally on the run while standing still. Beyond the feet, we must observe proxemics, the invisible boundaries of human space. Every person carries a protective bubble. When a person feels threatened or uncomfortable, they will perform what is known as ventral shielding. They will unconsciously place an object, a bag, a laptop, or even their own crossed arms, directly over their vital organs. This is an ancient survival instinct to protect the soft parts of the body. When you see a woman clutch her handbag tighter or move her coffee cup between herself and her interlocutor, you are witnessing a silent declaration of, "I do not feel safe," or "I am withdrawing." Then, there is the world of micro-expressions, the involuntary facial leaks discovered by Dr. Paul Ekman. These expressions last only a fraction of a second, a literal blink of an eye. A flash of contempt, characterized by a slight lifting of one corner of the lip, a micro-shrug of the shoulder, or a sudden narrowing of the eyelids. These are the raw data points of the human soul. An insightful person doesn't just see the smile, they see the shadow that passes behind it. They notice the Duchenne marker, the absence of crow's feet around the eyes that distinguishes a fake, social smile from a genuine moment of joy. By learning to decode these clusters of movement, the silent language becomes as clear as a written book. How does the mind turn these millions of tiny cues into a single, accurate hunch? The answer lies in the psychological phenomenon of thin slicing. This concept, popularized by Malcolm Gladwell and based on the work of researchers like John Gottman, suggests that our brains are capable of projecting long-term outcomes based on a thin sliver of experience. Imagine your brain as a massive library of every social interaction you have ever witnessed, every movie you've seen, every argument you've heard, and every lie you've detected. This is your pattern library. When you meet a new person, your subconscious mind runs a high-speed search query through this library. It compares the current cues, the way they hold their head, the cadence of their speech, the way they avoid eye contact, against thousands of past examples. Within seconds, it finds a match. John Gottman's research is a perfect example of this. By observing a couple for just a few minutes, he could predict with over 90% accuracy whether they would be divorced within 10 years. He wasn't looking at their words, he was looking for the four horsemen: criticism, defensiveness, stonewalling, and the most dangerous of all, contempt. Contempt is the sulfur of human relationships. The perceptive mind smells it long before it becomes an argument. However, we must also be aware of the noise. Our own biases, past traumas, and the halo effect can distort our perception. The halo effect is a cognitive bias where we assume that because someone is attractive or authoritative, they must also be trustworthy. True insight requires the ability to strip away the status and the appearance to see the raw, rhythmic data of the person's behavior. It is about asking, does the melody of their body language match the lyrics of their speech? When there is a dissonance, that is where the truth resides. We must now address the most critical application of perception, and that is safety. In many societies, women are conditioned to be polite above all else. They are taught to ignore the unseen signals, to avoid being seen as rude or difficult. But as security expert Gavin de Becker brilliantly argued in The Gift of Fear, intuition is our most vital survival tool. It is the brain's emergency broadcast system. Predators and manipulators often use predictable patterns to bypass our defenses. One such pattern is force teaming. This is when a stranger uses the word "we" to create a false sense of shared destiny. We're in this together, or let's get those groceries inside. The perceptive mind hears this and immediately flags it as a boundary violation. Another cue is loan sharking, doing an unsolicited favor, like carrying a bag, to create a psychological debt. The victim feels obligated to be nice to the person who helped them, even if that person makes them feel deeply uncomfortable. Deciphering these cues is about recognizing that creepy is a technical term. It is the word we use when our brain has detected a predatory pattern that hasn't yet reached our conscious awareness. When you feel a chill or a twinge in your gut, it is your vagus nerve communicating directly with your brain. It is the result of thousands of years of human experience saying, this pattern is dangerous. Insightful perception allows a person to see pre-incident indicators or pins. It is noticing that someone is loitering with intent, that their gaze is predatory rather than social, or that they are ignoring "no" as a complete sentence. By reclaiming the power of perception, we stop being victims of politeness and start being masters of our own safety. We understand that knowing is not a luxury, it is a biological right. To conclude our exploration, we must ask, how do we sharpen this lens? How do we move from passive sensing to active deciphering? Like any skill, perception is a muscle that must be trained. The first step is establishing the baseline. You cannot detect a lie or a shift if you don't know what normal looks like for a person. When you meet someone, spend the first few minutes observing their natural rhythm. How do they move their hands when they are relaxed? What is their normal vocal pitch? Once the baseline is set, any deviation becomes a signal. If they suddenly stop using hand gestures or their voice goes an octave higher, you have found a hotspot of emotional tension. The second step is listening with the whole body. In our modern world, we are distracted by screens and our own internal monologues. To truly read the room, you must be present. You must observe the interactional synchrony, how people in a group mimic each other. When someone is out of sync, they are often the person with the most hidden information or the most dissenting opinion. Finally, we must trust the somatic marker. When your body gives you a signal, do not analyze it with logic immediately. Feel it, acknowledge it, ask yourself, what is my body reacting to? Is it the tone? Is it the space? Is it the timing? Cultivating insight is not about becoming a human lie detector. It is about becoming more deeply human. It is about recognizing that we are all broadcasting a silent symphony of signals every second of every day. When you learn to hear the music, the world becomes a more transparent, more navigable, and ultimately, a more beautiful place. It is the art of deciphering the unseen, and it is the most powerful tool you possess. The concept of human perception, especially the nuanced ability to read between the lines, commonly